Hi, I'm Eileen Bild. I am with OTEL Talk, and I am thrilled today to have Dr. Ann Worth. Dr. Ann is a Christian author, and she is a speaker and workshop facilitator. She's been a counselor for over 40 years, working primarily with issues of addiction and trauma. And Anne is a contributing author to the book Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy. And she has this wonderful quote: by surrendering, I won, I gained everything, and lost only what needed to go. And I love that. So I want to welcome you, Anne. Hi.
Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me have this opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. So your life was at a point of really a life or death crossroads. You kind of had hit rock bottom, and lies had caused the pain into this darkness that you'd never experienced before. Mm-hmm. So that seems to be kind of the catalyst of what brought you to who you are and where you are today, and the story that you share in the book Crappy to Happy. So tell me about that point of that crossroads.
You know, my life had been dark and difficult for most of my life. But when I was 55, I faced a life-threatening illness. And that illness frightened me enough to realize that I might be really going to die pretty quickly. And all those questions that we all have of what happens then, of course, began to surface. And I had some what I call spiritual trauma early in my life through the church and through some misguided people. And so what surfaced for me was this terrible fear of hell. I had put hell out of my mind for many, many, many years. But when I got right to looking into the open grave, that fear, that childhood fear, loomed very large. And I realized that I didn't know what to do. If you did have to get right with God, I sure didn't know how to do it. So I was at a real crisis.
Well, it sounds like that was like a really scary point in your life, because, you know, when we do transition, it's a definite unknown. And to have had people telling you when you do take that final breath and it's going to be hell, you know, like going to hell and terrible, that's a scary feeling.
Well, and the other part that's a bit ironic is that most of my life I didn't want to live. I was actually so miserable, so hopeless, I guess would be a better way to say it. I was so hopeless that things would ever turn around for me, because every time I got my hopes up, it seemed like it got worse. So here I was facing death, and I thought, in a way, well, if it was over quickly, you know, okay, but this was not going to be a quick, easy death. This was going to be suffering. And so I wanted to die most of my life, and now suddenly I am not ready to die. So now what am I going to do?
Right, it's kind of a paradox, right? So it was
a paradox.
And it was a almost like a transformative experience, because what you thought you wanted, when you were faced with it, you realized, you know, this isn't exactly what I want. So I would think at that point, you kind of took a breath and took stock of, okay, well, who am I really? And where do I want to go in life if I am going to survive this? And that maybe was your next step into pulling yourself out of that darkness.
Well, and
And
the bigger question was, who was God? And
right.
how in the heck was I going to find out at this late stage of the game when I had been so angry with God? So, I mean, I had so many questions about if God is real, why this, why that, why this. And so to even think about approaching God, I mean, I had fear and rage. Those are the two feelings I had about God.
And
So,
those are really strong.
mhm,
And I'm thinking that caused a disconnect. You know, you kind of felt like you didn't belong, but you knew you were human and you were, you know, breathing, but you weren't really alive. You know, you didn't.
that is such a good way to put it. Yes, it really is.
Yeah.
But I found new life,
Good.
and
Yeah.
I found it through this God that I was so afraid of and so angry with. And of course, I wouldn't have found my way on my own, but some very dear friends, a couple that I knew, um, just innocently, they were caretaking. They had gone to the grocery for me. They had come by and made soup. And as they were leaving, they said, "Could we pray for you?" Just this very innocent
Mm-hmm.
statement, you know, "Could we pray for you?" I said, "Hell no." And I mean, I kind of shocked myself.
Right.
And
Right.
so they were shocked, of course, and they asked me, why would you feel so strongly about that? And I shared some of my childhood story. So they went away, and later she called me one day and she said, "I have found a way for you to have a second chance with God."
Oh.
I had no idea what that meant, but when she told me about uh, this weekend workshop that I could go to for people who needed a second chance with God, I thought, that is the last place I'm ever going to go into a room with 50 or 60 people who believe in God, and I'm a non-believer. But through a series of miracles, I did arrive there, and the rest is history, because I met God face to face, and He healed my body, He healed my mind, He healed my heart. He gave me a new life, and my life is full of light and love and laughter and all those cliche things that you hear about how wonderful life can be.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's almost like you had a moment of pause and quiet in order to, in an almost kind of surreal way, that allowed that old part of you to kind of surrender and dissipate
Yes,
to make
yes,
room for that awakening and the
absolutely.
awness of that greatness that's beyond us.
Yes. You know,
Because
I had three mottos: I can do it, I don't need anybody, and never get your hopes up.
hmm,
And I thought that those were three really good ways to live. You don't get disappointed by anybody because you
right.
don't expect anything good to happen. You don't trust anybody, so you don't get betrayed. I mean, I thought I had this all figured out, right? But every one of those mottos that I lived by were so self-defeating, and kept me locked in from anybody being able to help me, a person or God. I mean, I was locked into my own belief system that was so self-defeating, so self-hating, really. Just, but may I share something with you?
Absolutely. Please do.
In all that darkness, I always felt so unworthy. It started out because my mom suffered from postpartum depression and she rejected me. She didn't want me, and I understand that today. And through no fault of her own, that rejection, that maternal rejection, had a very long lasting effect. So I first felt unwanted and then I felt unworthy. But after this wonderful transformative experience, I am worthy.
Yes, yay.
I wrote this book, Call Me Worthy, because I couldn't find my worth. It was a gift given to me by a loving father. And it couldn't have happened any other way for me. I had tried everything from, yoga, meditation, going and living in the ashram of Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. I mean, I had gone to the ends of the earth to try to find value in my life and to find peace. And it was all temporary. It was always temporary.
Well, what I'm finding, and the same for myself, is we had this life journey, and along that path, there's a point where we hit like a wall, or we hit a stage where there's no turning back, and we go into that core of who we are, and it's almost like this warrior cry, this warrior, energy that comes from like the depths of our soul, and it screams out and like a declaration of, this is who I am. I mean, this is not who I am, and I want to be who I am. And I want to say that many of the people that I'm interviewing for this book, and I was in the previous book, we all have this declaration where we take our fist, whether it's physical or metaphorically, and we say, enough, enough is enough, and I want something different in my life. So did you have a defining declaration, something you said, something you felt? And when you did that, did things immediately start to change? Because that seems to be the catalyst.
I think I had so many of those moments. And each one of those moments, I thought it was the worst thing that could have ever happened in my life. Like when I had to say out loud, I am an alcoholic. My name is Ann and I am an alcoholic. Or my name is Ann and I've done many other things, whether it was abortion or divorce or so many times I faced the devastating reality of who I thought I was. And every time things got better. I mean, when I admitted I was an alcoholic, I met the most wonderful group of people in Alcoholics Anonymous I had ever known in my life. It was actually better than the people I had known in church when I was younger. If the church were more like Alcoholics Anonymous, I think we'd have more people in church. I should not have probably said that, but so everything that happened, it's just like this life-threatening illness. Well, what could be worse than that?
Right.
But it turned my life around. So maybe it has to get really, really, really dark before we can recognize the light.
Well, I think there's some truth to what you just said about that, because I think we're so influenced, and we take on other people's beliefs and other things that people say to us that form who we become. That is not our authentic self, but there's that inner knowing of our authentic self that that's not who I am, but we don't know how to get out of who someone else has, called us to be, to step into our true authentic power and our self-empowerment, self-confidence, self-esteem. And it's not an easy path, because we have to let go of what we know and step into something unfamiliar and uncomfortable, which is strange because it's who we are, right?
And that's where faith comes in. I
Right.
mean, we have to step out on faith, and we don't know where the bottom is. We just trust that he's going to hold us up.
Yeah.
I I had so many things I needed to give up that were not authentic. I believe that God created me to be a loving, kind woman. And I was filled with doubt and fear and shame and anger and mistrust and bitterness. And he can take it. He can take it away and let us evolve as our true spirit. We're spiritual. We're stuck in this body.
Mm-hmm.
But I truly believe we are a spiritual being having a human existence, and that we can go into that place of peace. You know, the last thing that Jesus left for us when he left the disciples, he could have said a million things, but what he said is, "My peace I leave with you."
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what is going on, if I will settle into that peace that he left for me, I'm peaceful.
You're peaceful. Yes. Well,
So,
I like to say it's being in the world but not of it. So it's to walk,
yes.
to walk our path in the light
Mhm.
without the judgment and, not judging ourselves, and to find ways to be among those that do judge and, have that negative influence, almost in a state of forgiveness already there, so that when they bring that to us, we can almost bless them and say, thank you for that, but it doesn't work for me. That's not what feels good. Because when we're in the dark space, when we're in those negative feelings and emotions, it's debilitating in the mind and the body and the spirit. And, what I'm finding with everybody I'm interviewing for the book is they want to feel good. They want to feel that love. They want to feel that embracing. And one of the things that's worked for me and for the clients and the people that surround me in my circle is a simple statement: let go, let God. you know and just to have that moment of peace, of just let go, just be in that now moment.
That surrender, that
Yes.
surrender. You know, there's another saying that's very similar to that one that's fun, and it's said, "I do my best, God does the rest."
Yes,
You
right.
know, but we do have to do our best.
Yeah.
You know, when you mentioned forgiveness, that was one of the sweetest things that happened for me when I met Jesus, and that is that I was filled with shame about so many things that I had done. And the name of my chapter is Mercy, and in the book Crappy to Happy. And mercy is something that a prisoner begs for, from the judge at the court, in the courtroom. God, just grant me mercy. Well, I didn't deserve it. I had done every one of those things that I was ashamed of. I was guilty as sin, but he forgives everything. And so who am I not to forgive another person?
Right.
It was really a shock to me when I wrote the book, because I had been a Christian about 10 years when I wrote the book. Well, 15 really. And I realized I hadn't forgiven my father.
Mm.
I had forgiven my mother. I could really understand that she had a mental illness. And I had tried and tried and tried to forgive my father. But when I was writing the book, I realized I tried, but I had not. And God helped me see my father through his eyes.
Mm.
And I saw this little boy who God created, just like he created me and you and everybody. And that little boy lost his way. And I don't think, I don't think he ever found his way back. But seeing him through God's eyes, I could not forgive him fast enough, or anyone else, whoever, even if they intentionally meant me harm. Things have happened to people to create their hard heart or their mistaken ideas. If we can just understand where people are coming from, we can understand that all human behavior makes sense if we are given that understanding. And so forgiveness comes very easy to me these days, except when it comes to child abuse and animal abuse, and I am working on it. I'm working on it, but I tell you, that is still very hard for me.
Well, and I can understand that because, for people who are not of the mindset of doing something bad to another person, it's hard to understand why would someone in their right mind even consider doing harm to an animal or a person or in any destructive way. And it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of perseverance and patience and inner strength to not feel that someone has done something to us. Because I like to say life happens through us and not to us,
Very
right?
good thing.
Yeah. And so, when I have my own experience of feeling attacked in some way or not treated in a way that resonates with who I know I am, which is a very calm, peaceful, giving, loving person, I question, well, what makes them think that they can bring that to me, right?
Yeah.
And I've learned over the years that it doesn't really have to do with me. I'm just kind of the volunteer for them to learn what they need to learn. And so, I practice to just hold space for people when they bring what they bring that doesn't connect with who I am, and give them the opportunity to either come to my side of how I like to live my life, or they go away and they can come back anytime, but they have to have that synergy with me because otherwise it doesn't feel good. And I think that's where people get in trouble with feeling that shame, that guilt, that not worthy, and all of those emotions and feelings because people are not bringing to them what they need for themselves, and or they're not working on that internal inner journey to have that first, so then they can deflect when it doesn't match.
The other thing that that is so important to remember is that the forgiveness is really for ourselves.
Right.
Because when we hold that anger, it is not hurting them,
No.
but we're hurting ourselves.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I want to be forgiving. And I wrote a disclaimer in my book, because many of the stories in my younger life have to do with abuse. And so I wrote this disclaimer, and I said, although I have written about very painful, hurtful things that happened to me, there are no bad people in this book. Hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
And so I'm a dog rescuer. I work with a group of rescuers, and so we see, really the worst of the worst. And I have to remind myself, after the tears and just the horror of it all, I have to remind myself that something horrific happened to that person.
Mm.
That person was not born that way.
Right.
I wasn't born a terrible person, and neither is anybody else, but things can happen to us that distort our thinking and our feelings to such a point where we do crazy things.
Well, and I think, yeah, I think the crazy things that people do is propelled by the anger or the lack of feeling loved or, the lack of feeling connected. I interviewed Dr. Bernie Siegel. He likes to be called Bernie, and
Uh,
something in one of his stories, he's a book of stories. I loved interviewing him. But one of the things he shared was um, he often found himself meeting someone new or just seeing someone when he was out and about distressed in some way. And he would just walk up to them and just say, I love you. Didn't know the person from anywhere. And that has stuck with me that, that's all people need to hear. And when he would say that to someone, their whole demeanor would change.
of course.
And so I think the bottom line is we want to feel love, we want to be loved, and anything and everything that we do is about love. And I believe love is always present, but we don't always feel it for whatever reasons that might be.
Makes me think of that sweet little children's song, Jesus Loves Me.
Yeah. So let me see. So when you gave up and surrendered, and you gave up the doubts and the fears and the rage and the shame and that deep sadness and that hopelessness, and you shifted and you replaced it. What was that shift? What was that like to go from? Because a lot of people can't get out of that. So maybe describe what it was like for you to be able to heal, especially from your health crisis, and get out of that state to be able to go into the joy, the peace, the happiness, and keep it. Because a lot of people have trouble keeping it. They can maybe have moments of it. So what's your key for that?
Well, I wish I had a key to give you. God was the key for me.
Okay.
The love of God was the key. God just would not leave me alone. I mean, he had pursued me. He had pursued me everywhere I ran, as fast and as hard as I could run, any place where I didn't think God would be. And he just kept slowly but surely turning me until I got to the pit of the grave. And so for me, I had this confrontation in this workshop that I told you about with God. My eyes were closed, and I had called God every name I could think of and told him how awful he was and how he betrayed me, let me down, abandoned me, you name it. And my eyes were still, the whole room just lit up with light. And it was the love of God, and it melted me. It melted every bit of resistance. It melted every lie. I mean, but I was at that life and death decision. He was there, but I had to surrender. And when I surrender, I was just swept up in this love that I can't define it. It was brilliant. It was warm. It was embracing. It was forgiving. It was adopting. It was like being born again. I'd heard that expression all my life. I had no idea what it meant, but it's like being spiritually born.
Right. It's almost like a liberation. liberating, and like you were in this cocoon and you
Hmm.
finally came out of that cocoon to where.
Well, and that's why we use the lock and that my heart was locked up. My thinking was I was locked in, locked down. And love can break a lock. And he just broke the lock on the lies that I had believed. And so what's interesting is that was a instantaneous awakening.
Mm.
And I never went back to my disbelief or those lies that I had believed about myself. But the physical healing and the emotional healing came more slowly. It was the emotional healing came first. And then honestly, one day I woke up and I thought, I I feel pretty good today, and a few days later so I went to my doctor and I said, I think I've been healed. And he just kind of patted me on the back and he said, well, that's nice, honey. And I said, well, would you draw blood? Would you check? And sure enough, I mean, I had been healed. And
Wow.
he still calls it remission, but that's okay. He can believe what he wants to believe. I don't have it anymore, so anyway.
Right. Well, and that's all that counts, right? Is that you feel good and the tests show it's gone and you're living a very fulfilling life.
Yes.
So, what a wonderful story, and I hope it inspires
Oh,
people who watch this interview because it's, I think miracles happen every day, and
absolutely.
we just sometimes are so caught up in the everyday living, we forget to recognize or we don't see that something small and simple is actually a miracle in
I don't know. Are you familiar with the Confederate soldiers' prayer?
I'm familiar with it, but it's been a while.
I haven't read it myself in quite a while, but when you said there are miracles all around us, I remember that he said, he asked for all these things and God gave him something else that he didn't recognize. And oh, I wish I could remember some of it, but it's like when a butterfly, goes by. That's a little miracle. I mean, if we are at peace, we see those things. We can smell the flowers, if you will.
Right.
But when we're caught up in worry and fear and anger, and we don't see the miracles that are all around us. The sun rises, the beautiful sunrise. We don't even care. We don't even realize the sun came up. We're just so preoccupied with everything else. So if we can slow down, walk in the light, stay in the truth, be at peace with each other, love each other, forgive, we can have a pretty good life no matter what else is going on.
Absolutely. And
No matter what.
yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. And when you did the butterfly thing, it made me think of the butterfly effect, which is here a butterfly can be flying here, and the movement it makes in the wind can go all the way across to the other side of the world. And
Africa. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
and I think that part of the being blind to the miracles is that sometimes we don't realize the impact that we have on someone just in maybe a smile or a touch or giving someone a compliment and being that you've been a counselor for so long. um, I'm sure there's many of your clients who you've impacted in ways that you probably can't imagine, but you had to become who you've become in order to be able to have that impact on others. So, is there anything else that you would like to share before we finish this today?
Um, I'm just delighted that what a pleasant visit we've had. I get a little nervous, about these interviews, but once I get to meet the person like you who is interested, I mean, I love to talk about myself. So, uh, anyway, I love to talk about Jesus even more. But
Well,
so,
it's been a right. Well, that your awakening to that connection has been a huge impact and catalyst for your healing on the all the different levels. So I always ask everybody to leave with some words of wisdom for those who are watching.
well, everything that I thought about how I can do it with the help of God. Uh, my old belief, don't trust anybody. We need each other. Um, that never get your hopes up. Never lose your hope. I, I wish you'd asked me that question earlier, or given me a heads up. I might have more
Uh,
wisdom, but just love God, love yourself, and love each other.
there you go. I like that. All right. Well, thank you, Anne. And where can people find you?
My website is Dr. Anne, Anne, Worth, WORTH, author.com.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, thank you. This has been a wonderful time with you, and I wish you the best. And we will see each other again soon.
Thank you so much.
You're
Bye
welcome.
bye.
Bye.